Raymond, please. I am bleeding and I am scared and the doctors say I might lose the baby. Please just come. Please do not leave me here alone. The phone call ended 12 years ago, but it echoed in Raymond Aldrich's mind as if the words had been spoken yesterday. He sat in the reserved donor section of the university auditorium, surrounded by people who admired him, and he could not breathe. His name was carved into the wall of the new building across campus. His photograph hung in the administrative hall. His fiancée sat beside him, checking her phone with the practiced boredom of someone who attended too many obligatory events. But Raymond was not thinking about his legacy or his buildings or the woman wearing his ring. He was thinking about a hospital room 12 years ago and a voice begging him to stay. I just need time to think. I am not ready for this. Those were the last words he had spoken to her before walking out of that emergency room. Before ignoring her calls. Before convincing himself that her silence meant the pregnancy had ended and she simply needed space to heal. Those were the lies he had told himself for over a decade. And now the dean was calling names alphabetically, and Raymond's hands were shaking because he knew what was coming. He had known for 3 weeks. He had found her name on the graduation roster during a sleepless night when guilt had driven him to search for evidence that she had survived what he had done to her. Vivian Grace Holloway. Master of Social Work. She had finished. Despite everything he had put her through, she had finished. Welcome back to another powerful story, my beloved listeners. Kindly tell where you are watching from and what time it is where you are at. If you are new here, prepare for a story of betrayal, unexpected love, and what truly makes a family. Drop everything and listen closely. This tale of heartbreak and redemption might just change how you view love and family forever. The dean's voice carried across the auditorium with practiced ceremony. Each name represented years of sacrifice and determination. Each graduate crossing that stage had earned their moment through countless hours of study and struggle. But Raymond heard none of it. His attention remained fixed on the wings of the stage where graduates waited for their names to be called. His heart pounded against his ribs with such force that he wondered if the woman beside him could hear it. You seem distracted. Celeste Warren spoke without looking up from her phone. Her voice carried the particular tone of someone who had noticed a problem but did not consider it worth genuine attention. Just tired. The lie came easily. Raymond had been lying to himself and everyone around him for so long that the words required no thought at all. He had built an empire on foundations of cowardice, and the structure had held for 12 years. There was no reason to believe tonight would be any different. Except he knew it would be. He had come here specifically to see her. He had told himself it was curiosity. He had told Celeste it was obligation to the university that bore his family name. He had told Bernard, his assistant, that the graduation ceremony was an important networking opportunity. None of those explanations were true. The truth was simpler and more pathetic. Raymond Aldrich wanted to see what he had destroyed. He wanted to witness the wreckage of his choices walking across a stage so he could finally stop pretending that his abandonment had not mattered. The dean continued calling names. Baker, Brennan, Caldwell, Chen. Each name brought Vivian closer to the stage. Each passing second tightened the pressure in Raymond's chest until breathing became a conscious effort. Celeste glanced at him with something approaching concern. Raymond, are you feeling all right? You look pale. I am fine. Another lie. Another brick in the wall he had built around the truth. The engagement ring on Celeste's finger caught the auditorium lights. It was obscenely large because that was what her family expected and what his family required. Their wedding was scheduled for 8 weeks from now. The invitations were printed. The deposits were paid. 2 powerful families would merge their interests and call it love. Raymond felt nothing when he looked at that ring. He never had. The dean's voice cut through his thoughts. Vivian Grace Holloway. Master of Social Work. Time fractured into pieces Raymond could not catch. She appeared from the wings with quiet dignity. Her graduation gown flowed as she walked, and her shoulders were straight with the particular pride of someone who had earned everything the hard way. She was older than his memories allowed. There were lines around her eyes that had not existed when he knew her. Her face had been refined by years of difficulty into something harder and more beautiful than the girl he remembered. But she was not alone. A boy walked beside her holding her hand. Raymond forgot how to breathe. The child was perhaps 11 years old. He wore a miniature suit jacket that was slightly too large for his thin shoulders. His dark curls caught the stage lights as he moved with careful deliberation beside his mother. His posture was straight despite obvious nervousness, and his face was turned toward the audience with an expression of serious concentration. Raymond saw his own features reflected there with devastating clarity. The exact shape of his eyes, the set of his jaw, the way his small eyebrows drew together when he focused. These were not coincidences. These were not wishful thinking or paranoid imagination. These were genetics announcing themselves across a crowded auditorium. The pregnancy had not ended. The baby had survived. Raymond had a son. The auditorium erupted in warm applause. People loved this image. A single mother graduating with her child. Perseverance personified. The triumph of determination over circumstance. Raymond heard none of it. The world had narrowed to that stage. To Vivian accepting her diploma with one hand while refusing to release her son with the other. To the fierce protective love in her expression when she smiled down at the boy. To the way the child leaned against her leg for comfort while hundreds of strangers watched them. Then Raymond saw the man waiting at the bottom of the stage. He was tall and powerfully built with the bearing of someone accustomed to physical challenge. He wore medical scrubs under a casual jacket as if he had come straight from work. His face held the patient expression of someone who had learned to wait for the things that mattered. When Vivian descended the stairs with the boy, the man stepped forward and lifted the child effortlessly. He settled the boy against his hip with practiced ease. The gesture was so natural and so familiar that it spoke of thousands of repetitions. Bedtime carries. Morning pickups. The countless small moments that accumulated into the substance of fatherhood. Then he kissed Vivian. Not a quick congratulatory peck. A real kiss. Deep and genuine. The kind that spoke of years of intimacy and complete trust. Raymond saw the ring on Vivian's left hand as she wrapped her arm around the man's neck. Not an engagement ring. A wedding band. Simple gold. She was already married. An older woman joined them near the stage exit. She had Vivian's eyes and the weathered face of someone who had worked hard her entire life. She embraced Vivian with tears streaming down her cheeks. Then she lifted the boy from the other man's arms and covered his face with kisses. The child laughed with that pure, unguarded sound of joy that only children possess. They stood together like a photograph of everything Raymond had destroyed. Complete family. Hard-won happiness. A life built from ashes without any space for him in it. That is her. Bernard's voice was quiet and careful. He had worked for Raymond long enough to recognize danger. Raymond could not form words. Could not move. Could only watch as the family moved toward the exit. His son was walking away. His son was calling another man father. His son had lived an entire life Raymond knew nothing about. More names were called. More graduates crossed the stage toward futures they had earned. The ceremony continued because the world did not stop for private devastation. It never had. Celeste's phone buzzed with a text notification. She read it and sighed. The caterer needs final confirmation on the appetizer selection. I told you we should have decided last week. Raymond stared at her without comprehension. Appetizers. Caterers. Wedding details. These words belonged to a different universe. One where he had not just discovered that his son existed and was walking away without knowing his biological father sat 30 feet away. Raymond. Celeste's voice sharpened with irritation. Are you even listening to me? I need air. He stood abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor loud enough that nearby donors glanced over with disapproval. He did not care. He pushed past Bernard and Celeste and strangers whose congratulations he did not hear. He moved through the crowded auditorium toward the exit with single-minded desperation. Outside, the spring evening felt thick and suffocating despite the gentle breeze. Families gathered on the lawn for photographs. Graduates embraced friends and parents with a particular joy of accomplishment. Normal lives continued all around him while Raymond's world collapsed. He walked until he found empty steps behind the building where no one would see him. He sat down heavily on cold stone and tried to remember how to breathe around the weight crushing his lungs. The boy was perhaps 11 years old. Raymond did the math with numb precision. Vivian had been 18 weeks pregnant when she called him from the hospital. If the pregnancy had continued, if she had carried the baby to term, the child would be approximately 11 years old now. The timing was exact. That was his son. His son who had his eyes and Vivian's fierce protective love surrounding him. His son who called another man father and laughed when his grandmother covered his face with kisses. His son who had lived an entire life while Raymond built an empire and pretended none of it mattered. Raymond's phone buzzed in his pocket. Celeste texting about the wedding cake selection. About the venue walkthrough. About the strategic alliance dressed up as romance that was supposed to become his future in 8 weeks. He stared at her name on the screen for a long moment. Then he typed 3 words. Cancel everything. The reply came immediately. Question marks. Demands for explanation. Celeste's controlled fury bleeding through even in text format. Raymond turned off his phone and sat in darkness while the campus emptied around him. He did not know how long he remained there. Long enough for the celebration noises to fade. Long enough for the parking lots to empty. Long enough for the security guard making rounds to ask if he needed assistance. Raymond told the man he was fine. Another lie. The only kind of words he seemed capable of producing anymore. Eventually he returned to his car and drove through streets he did not see toward a penthouse he did not want to occupy. Celeste was not there when he arrived. She had texted 17 times demanding explanation. She had called twice. She had finally sent a message informing him that she was staying with her parents until he came to his senses. Raymond poured himself a drink and stood at the window watching the city lights blur below. Somewhere out there his son was probably being tucked into bed. The man in scrubs was probably reading him a story. Vivian was probably standing in the doorway watching with that fierce love in her eyes. And Raymond was exactly where he deserved to be. Alone with his ghosts. Watching the life he had destroyed from a distance that could never be crossed. The next 3 days passed in a haze Raymond barely remembered afterward. Celeste's father called to express fury at the public embarrassment. Raymond's father called to demand explanation. The company board requested an emergency meeting about leadership stability. Business partners expressed concern about the merger implications of a cancelled engagement. Raymond ignored all of it. He sat in his penthouse office surrounded by evidence of success that meant nothing. Awards. Photographs with important people. The architectural plans for buildings that would bear his name for generations. Monuments to ambition built on foundations of cowardice. On the 3rd night Bernard arrived with takeout containers that Raymond did not touch and concern that Raymond did not address. You need to tell me what happened. Bernard set the food on the kitchen counter and studied Raymond with the careful attention of someone who had witnessed too many concerning behaviors in recent days. I saw someone at the graduation. Raymond's voice sounded strange even to his own ears. Scraped raw. Hollow. Someone from your past. Yes. Bernard waited with the patience of a man accustomed to extracting difficult information. Her name is Vivian Holloway. I knew her 12 years ago. Before the company. Before Celeste. Before everything. Raymond stared at his untouched drink. She was pregnant when I left her. I did not know the baby survived. The silence that followed was heavy with implications Bernard was clearly calculating. The boy on the stage. Yes. And the man she was with. Her husband. He has apparently been raising my son for years. Bernard sat down slowly as if sudden movement might shatter something fragile. What are you going to do? I do not know. Raymond set down his glass and pressed his palms against his eyes until colors burst behind his lids. I need to know what happened. I need to understand what my leaving did to her. To them. That is a dangerous path. I know. Whatever you find will not be pleasant. I do not deserve pleasant. Raymond lowered his hands and looked at Bernard directly. I want you to contact a private investigator. Someone discreet. Someone thorough. Someone who will show me everything without softening it. Bernard studied him for a long moment. You want to punish yourself. I want the truth. Whatever form that takes. The investigator's name was Marcus Webb. He had a reputation for discretion and an hourly rate that reflected it. Raymond did not care about the cost. He cared only about the documentation that would force him to see clearly what he had spent 12 years refusing to acknowledge. The initial meeting took place in Raymond's office 4 days after the graduation ceremony. Webb was a compact man with observant eyes and the particular stillness of someone who spent his life watching others. I need you to find information about a woman named Vivian Grace Holloway. Raymond's voice was steady despite the tremor in his hands. I need to know what happened to her after I left. I need to see every piece of damage I caused. Webb made notes without visible reaction. This is personal for you. Yes. The woman at the graduation ceremony. I did some preliminary research before this meeting. She received a Master of Social Work degree after 11 years of part-time enrollment. Currently employed as a family services coordinator at a community center. Married 18 months ago to a man named Gabriel Torres. The boy is 11 years old. Raymond closed his eyes. His name is Oliver. The words felt strange in his mouth. His son had a name. Oliver. Raymond had not known until Webb spoke it. What specifically do you want me to find? Everything. Medical records. Financial documents. Employment history. Every detail of what happened after I walked away. I need to see it clearly. Webb studied him with something approaching assessment. Most clients want me to find evidence that exonerates them. You seem to want the opposite. I want the truth. I have been lying to myself for 12 years. I need someone to show me exactly what those lies cost. Webb nodded once. Give me 10 days. I will be thorough. He was. The report arrived at 2 in the morning on a Wednesday. 52 pages delivered via encrypted email while Raymond sat alone in his office, unable to sleep. He had not gone home since the graduation ceremony 8 days ago. He had not answered Celeste's increasingly furious calls demanding explanation. He had not attended the emergency board meeting his father called to discuss his erratic behavior. He had simply existed in suspended animation waiting for the truth to arrive and destroy him. His hands trembled as he opened the attachment. The first page contained basic information presented in clinical format. Subject Vivian Grace Holloway. Born March 15. Current residence 2847, Maple Lane. Employment Family Services Coordinator at Riverside Community Center. Annual salary $51,000. Education Bachelor of Social Work completed after 7 years of part-time enrollment. Master of Social Work completed after additional 4 years of part-time enrollment. 11 years to complete what should have taken 5. Raymond kept reading. Subject became pregnant during final semester of undergraduate studies. Father of child departed during second trimester following hospitalization for pregnancy complications. Subject's mother Dorothy Holloway remortgaged personal residence to cover medical expenses. Property had been family home for 31 years. Raymond stopped breathing. Dorothy's house. The modest home where Vivian had grown up. Where her father had planted fruit trees before he died of cancer when Vivian was 16. Where Dorothy had hosted neighborhood gatherings and raised her daughter alone after becoming a widow. Sold. To pay for medical bills that existed because Raymond had abandoned Vivian in an emergency room. He forced himself to continue reading even though every word felt like swallowing broken glass. Subject experienced automobile accident at 22 weeks gestation. Another driver ran a red light causing collision that resulted in pelvic fractures requiring surgical intervention. Subject spent 3 weeks in hospital following surgery. High-risk pregnancy continued with complications requiring extended bed rest. The accident. Raymond remembered Vivian calling him about it. Begging him to come. Explaining that she was injured and scared and alone. He had not gone. He had told himself he needed time to think. He had turned off his phone for a weekend that stretched into permanent silence. The report continued in devastating detail. Subject delivered son via cesarean section on December 14 following complications from previous pelvic fractures. Child named Oliver Thomas Holloway. Birth weight 4 pounds 11 ounces. Premature delivery at 34 weeks gestation. Infant spent 19 days in neonatal intensive care unit due to respiratory complications and difficulty maintaining body temperature. 19 days. Raymond's son had fought for his life for 19 days while Raymond attended holiday parties and accepted his partnership at the family firm. Total medical costs from pregnancy complications, accident injuries, and premature delivery $271,000. Insurance covered $112,000. Subject and mother Dorothy Holloway personally responsible for remaining balance of $159,000. The numbers swam before Raymond's eyes. $159,000. More than 3 times Dorothy's annual income as a retired schoolteacher. A debt that would take decades to pay off on their combined salaries. He scrolled down and found payment records stretching back years. Monthly installments of $300. Sometimes $400. Sometimes just $150 when that was all they could manage. They were still paying it off. Still drowning in debt from saving Raymond's son's life while Raymond signed contracts and attended charity galas. Subject withdrew from university during final semester due to financial constraints and childcare responsibilities. Resumed part-time enrollment 18 months after giving birth. Worked multiple simultaneous jobs to support child and pay medical debt. Overnight custodial work at medical office complex. Weekend receptionist at dental clinic. Freelance medical transcription from home during child's sleeping hours. Raymond's vision blurred. Vivian had scrubbed floors at night while caring for a premature infant during the day. Had typed medical notes at 3 in the morning while their son slept. Had built a life from absolute nothing while Raymond complained about the stress of managing quarterly reports. Dorothy Holloway worked as home health aide despite diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis to assist with childcare and living expenses. Condition has worsened over years of physical labor. Dorothy's hands. Raymond remembered them from the graduation ceremony. Gnarled and swollen even at a distance. Still working despite crippling arthritis because her daughter and grandson needed help. The report included photographs. Raymond clicked through them with a particular horror of someone watching an accident unfold in slow motion. Vivian's old apartment building. Paint peeling. Bars on windows. Trash overflowing from dumpsters in a neighborhood where people lived because they had no better options. The dental clinic where she had worked weekends. Squeezed between a liquor store and a check cashing place. Oliver as an infant. Thin and fragile in an incubator. Tubes and wires attached to his small body. A note in the medical file reading mother present at all times. Sleeps in chair beside incubator. Asks detailed questions about every medication and procedure. Father unknown. Unknown. As if Raymond had never existed. As if his son had been born from Vivian's determination alone. More photographs followed. Oliver as a toddler. Healthier but still small for his age. Wearing clothes that were clearly second-hand but meticulously maintained. Oliver starting school. His backpack was carefully mended at the straps. His shoes were clean but worn. Oliver at age 7, 8, 9. Each image revealing more of Raymond's features emerging through childhood. Then the photographs changed. A man appeared in them. Gabriel Torres, the report stated. Age 44. Pediatric physical therapist at Children's Rehabilitation Center. Navy veteran honorably discharged after 2 tours overseas. Met subject 3 years ago when her son required physical therapy following sports injury. Has been in relationship with subject for 2.5 years. Married 18 months ago. Legally adopted Oliver Holloway 7 months ago with full consent of mother. Child now carries hyphenated surname Holloway Torres. 3 years. Gabriel had known Vivian and Oliver longer than Raymond had been engaged to Celeste. He had earned his place through presence while Raymond had forfeited his through absence. The photographs documented Gabriel's integration into their lives. Gabriel at Oliver's school for career day. Surrounded by children asking questions about helping injured kids walk again. Gabriel teaching Oliver to ride a bicycle. Running alongside with patient encouragement while Oliver wobbled and laughed. Gabriel at Oliver's basketball game. Cheering from the stands with genuine investment in the outcome. Gabriel at the wedding. Small ceremony in a community garden. Oliver standing between them as ring bearer. Dorothy weeping with joy in the front row. The final page of the report contained a recommendation Raymond had not requested. Subject appears happy and stable in current marriage. Husband demonstrates consistent and appropriate involvement with child. Family unit functions well by all observable metrics. No indication subject has any contact with or interest in biological father of child. Recommend client accept situation and move forward with own life. Raymond closed the laptop. He made it to his private bathroom just before he was violently sick. When there was nothing left in his stomach, he collapsed on the cold tile floor and wept. He cried for Vivian working overnight shifts while pregnant with complications. For Dorothy selling her home and working despite crippling arthritis. For Oliver fighting to breathe in a plastic incubator while his mother slept in a chair because there was no one else to watch over him. He cried for all the birthdays and first words and childhood illnesses he had missed. For the school plays and basketball games and ordinary moments that accumulated into the substance of a life. But mostly he cried for himself. For the realization that he was not the protagonist of this story arriving to make things right. He was the villain. The obstacle they had overcome. The cautionary tale Vivian probably told herself about why she was right to trust Gabriel. His phone rang. His father's name on the screen. Raymond declined the call and let it go to voicemail. The message that followed was predictable. What the hell is going on? Celeste's father called me. She says you cancelled the wedding. The board is concerned about your mental state. Clients are asking questions. You need to get your act together immediately and call me back. This is unacceptable. Raymond deleted the message without responding. His father had been thrilled when Raymond left Vivian all those years ago. Had called it making the smart choice. Had increased Raymond's position at the firm as reward for choosing ambition over responsibility. His father's approval had been worth destroying the woman Raymond loved and abandoning his unborn child. The phone rang again. This time the screen showed Bernard's name. Raymond answered because Bernard at least deserved that much. Where are you? Bernard's voice carried genuine concern. Office. It is 3 in the morning. I know. Silence stretched between them. Did you receive the report? Yes. How bad is it? Raymond closed his eyes and leaned his head against the cold bathroom wall. Worse than I imagined. And I imagined it would be catastrophic. His voice came out hollow. Scraped clean of everything except exhaustion. She almost died, Bernard. The pregnancy nearly killed her. Oliver spent almost 3 weeks in the NICU fighting to survive. They have been drowning in medical debt for over a decade. Dorothy sold her house. Her house. The house her husband built for her before he died. Sold it to save my son's life while I was building an empire and pretending none of them existed. What are you going to do? Raymond opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling. I do not know yet. But I cannot keep pretending I am fine. I cannot keep living like nothing happened. Bernard was quiet for a moment. Whatever you decide, I am here to help. But Raymond, please be careful. They have built a life without you. They are happy. Sometimes the punishment for our mistakes is having to watch other people thrive in the life we should have had. I know. Raymond ended the call and sat alone in the darkness of his office bathroom. The investigation report had given him facts. Cold clinical documentation of damage he had caused. But facts were not the same as understanding. He knew what had happened to Vivian and Oliver. He did not know what it had felt like to live through it. And part of him understood that he never would. 3 weeks passed. Raymond resigned from his position as CEO of Aldrich Development. The board meeting that followed was contentious. His father accused him of mental instability. Shareholders expressed concern about leadership transition. Business partners questioned the future of pending deals. Raymond answered none of their questions. He simply signed the documents that transferred his responsibilities and walked out of the building that bore his family name. He sold his penthouse. Moved into a modest apartment in a neighborhood where no one knew who he was. Donated a significant portion of his wealth to organizations that helped single mothers and families in crisis. And he established an anonymous trust fund for Oliver. The money would accumulate silently. Pay for college when the time came. Cover medical expenses if needed. Provide resources for whatever Oliver might require throughout his life. Oliver would never know where the money came from. Would never feel obligated or burdened by its source. Would just have security waiting for him when he needed it. It was not enough. Could never be enough. But it was something concrete Raymond could do without disrupting their lives. Bernard found him a position at a non-profit organization that provided housing assistance to homeless families. The work was unglamorous. The pay was modest. But buildings rose from empty lots and families moved into homes they could afford. It was something. Raymond thought about Oliver constantly. Wondered what kind of person his son was becoming. What subjects he liked in school. What he wanted to be when he grew up. Whether he had Raymond's tendency toward perfectionism or Vivian's gift for connecting with people. But he did not try to contact them. He drove past their neighborhood occasionally. Saw the modest house with the basketball hoop in the driveway and the flowers planted near the front door. Saw Gabriel's car parked there on weekends. Saw Oliver shooting baskets while Gabriel rebounded for him. He watched from a distance and told himself that was all he deserved. Then one evening 6 months after the graduation ceremony, Raymond made a mistake. He had been drinking alone in his apartment. Not heavily, but enough to blur the edges of his judgment. Enough to convince himself that he needed to say something. That the silence was suffocating him. That Vivian at least deserved to know he understood what he had done. He wrote a letter. His handwriting was unsteady, but the words came with a particular clarity of things too long suppressed. Vivian. I saw you at graduation. I saw Oliver. I know I have no right to contact you after what I did. I know I lost any claim to you or to our son when I walked out of that hospital room 12 years ago. But I need you to know that I understand now. I hired someone to find out what happened after I left. And I have spent months reading about every sacrifice you made. Every obstacle you overcame. Every way my cowardice nearly destroyed you. I am not asking for forgiveness. I do not deserve that. I am not asking to be part of your life. You clearly built something beautiful without me. I just need you to know that I am sorry. That I was wrong about everything. That abandoning you is the worst thing I have ever done, and I will carry that weight until I die. If you are willing to meet with me even for 5 minutes, I would be grateful beyond words. If not, I will respect your decision and never contact you again. Raymond. He drove to their house at 3 in the morning and left the letter in their mailbox. His hand shook so badly he nearly dropped it. Then he went home and waited for judgment. 4 days passed in suffocating silence. Raymond checked his phone constantly, jumped at every notification, convinced himself alternately that Vivian would respond and that she would not. On the 5th day, his phone rang with an unknown number. Raymond answered before the second ring. Hello. Silence stretched for a long moment. Then a woman's voice came through the line. Hard and cold as winter. This is Dorothy Holloway. Raymond's heart stopped. Vivian's mother. The woman whose house he had cost. The woman who had worked despite crippling arthritis to help raise the grandson Raymond had abandoned. Do not speak. Just listen. Her voice could have cut diamond. My daughter received your letter. She cried for 2 hours after reading it. 2 hours, Raymond. Do you understand what that means? You hurt her again. Even your apology hurt her. I am sorry. I did not mean. I said do not speak. The command in her voice made Raymond's mouth snap shut. I told Vivian to burn that letter and forget you exist. I told her you do not deserve 5 seconds of her time, let alone a meeting. I told her that you had your chance 12 years ago and you walked away, and now she should let you live with that choice forever. Raymond could barely breathe. Do you know what she said? What? She said she needs to see you. One time. To say things she has needed to say for years. So against my better judgment and against every instinct I have, I am calling to tell you where and when. Hope flickered in Raymond's chest despite his certainty that he deserved none. But hear me clearly, Raymond Aldrich. Dorothy's voice dropped to something even more dangerous than anger. If you hurt my daughter again, if you say one single thing that makes her cry, if you bring any more pain into her life, I will make it my life's mission to destroy everything you have left. Do you understand me? Yes. Saturday, 10 in the morning. Riverside Park. North entrance. Vivian will meet you there. Come alone. Do not be late. And do not expect anything from her except what you deserve. The line went dead. Raymond sat motionless for a long time. Dorothy's words echoed in the empty rooms of his apartment. Vivian had cried for 2 hours. His letter had caused more damage. Of course it had. Everything he touched turned to ash. But she had agreed to see him. Why? What could she possibly want to say that a letter could not convey? Unless she needed to tell him face to face exactly how much she hated him. Maybe that was what this was. A chance for her to unleash years of justified rage while he stood there and accepted it. He deserved that. Deserved worse. Saturday arrived with agonizing slowness. Raymond dressed in simple clothes. Nothing expensive or showy. He drove to Riverside Park 30 minutes early and waited near the north entrance with his stomach in knots so tight he thought he might be sick. At exactly 10 he saw her walking up the path. Vivian looked different than she had at the graduation ceremony. Still beautiful but harder somehow. Refined by fire into something he no longer had the right to know. Her eyes held no warmth when she saw him. Only the controlled anger of someone who had been waiting years for this moment. She stopped about 10 feet away, maintaining distance like he was contaminated. I am only here because I need you to hear certain things. Her voice was steady, professional, the kind of control that spoke of extensive preparation. After today, I never want to see you again. Raymond nodded. Agreed. The word tasted like ashes in his mouth. Vivian took a breath. Her hands clenched at her sides so tight her knuckles went white. When you left me in that hospital, I thought I was going to die. Her voice remained even, but Raymond could hear the rage beneath it. Not from the pregnancy complications. From the pain of realizing that the man I loved valued his comfort more than my life. Do you understand that? I was bleeding and terrified, and I begged you to stay with me, and you walked out anyway. Raymond's throat closed completely. He nodded because words would not come. The doctor stabilized me. I went home with my mother. The pregnancy continued somehow despite everything. Vivian's gaze never wavered from his face. Then I had an accident. Another driver ran a red light. My pelvis was fractured in 2 places. I could not walk for weeks. I called you from the hospital bed. I called you and begged you to come be with me. Do you remember what you did? Raymond remembered. The memory had haunted him for 12 years. I turned off my phone. You turned off your phone. The words were a knife. I lay in a hospital bed for 3 weeks recovering from surgery. High-risk pregnancy with complications. And you turned off your phone. I am sorry. I did not give you permission to speak. Her voice was sharp enough to draw blood. You will listen. That is all you will do. Raymond closed his mouth and accepted the condemnation he deserved. I finished that semester barely functioning. Just trying to survive each day without falling apart completely. Then I started showing. People asked about the father. I told them you had left. The judgment was immediate and brutal. Suddenly I was that girl. The stupid one who got pregnant and abandoned. The one who should have known better. Each word landed like a physical blow. I had to drop out of school because I could not afford tuition and childcare. Could not work full days because of pregnancy complications. My mother sold her house to pay for my medical bills. Her house, Raymond. The house my father built for her before he died. 31 years of memories sold because I needed surgery and the insurance would not cover everything. Raymond felt his knees weaken but forced himself to remain standing. To bear witness to the destruction he had caused. I got a job cleaning offices at night. 8 months pregnant. Scrubbing toilets in corporate buildings while you slept in your expensive bed. My mother got work as a home health aide even though her arthritis was so bad she could barely hold a glass. We did whatever we had to do to survive what you did to us. Tears streamed down Raymond's face now, but he made no movement to wipe them away. Oliver was born 6 weeks early. 4 pounds 11 ounces. He could fit in my mother's hands. They did not know if his lungs would work properly. If he would be able to eat on his own. If he would have developmental delays from being premature. I sat beside his incubator for 19 days wondering if my son would survive. Wondering if God was punishing me for trusting you. Raymond's chest felt like it was collapsing. But he survived. And I decided that day that I would give him the best life possible no matter what it took. That he would never feel abandoned. Never wonder if he was wanted. Never question whether he was loved. So I worked 3 jobs. I went back to school part-time. I did everything humanly possible to build a stable life for him while you built your empire and pretended we did not exist. She paused. Her chest rose and fell with controlled breaths. When she continued, her voice was quieter but no less devastating. Then I met Gabriel. He was Oliver's physical therapist when Oliver injured his leg playing basketball. Oliver was 8. Gabriel noticed I was exhausted. Noticed I was barely holding everything together. He was kind when I had forgotten what kindness looked like. Raymond's hands shook, but he kept them at his sides. We started talking. Then dating. He met Oliver and did not run away from the responsibility. He showed up for basketball games and school plays. He helped with homework. He was there when Oliver had nightmares. He earned the right to be called father through years of consistent presence. Do you understand? He earned it. I know. Raymond's voice came out barely audible. You know nothing. Vivian's eyes blazed. You know facts on paper. Statistics from a report. You do not know what it feels like to hold your child and wonder if he will survive. You do not know what it feels like to work 16-hour days and still wonder if you can make rent. You do not know what it feels like to watch your mother sell her home because of your mistakes. You are right. I do not know. I will never know. And I hate myself for that. Vivian's expression did not soften. Your self-hatred means nothing to me. I did not agree to this meeting so you could feel better about your guilt. I agreed because I needed you to understand that my life went on. That I built something beautiful from the ashes you left. That Oliver is happy and healthy and loved. That I am married to a good man who has never once made me question his commitment. I understand. Do you? Her voice sharpened. Because you sent me that letter like it was some noble gesture. Like apologizing would somehow fix the years of damage. But it does not fix anything, Raymond. It just makes you feel like you tried. Like you did something meaningful. It is completely selfish. The accusation hit its mark because it was completely true. The letter had been about his need for absolution. Not about what Vivian needed. You are right. His voice was barely audible. I am sorry for everything. For leaving you in that hospital. For not being there when you needed me. For Oliver. For your mother's house. For every single way I failed you. I know sorry does not mean anything. I know it does not change what happened. But I need you to know that I see it clearly now. That I understand what I did. That I will carry this weight until I die. Vivian stared at him for a long moment. Her eyes searching his face for something he probably did not have to give. Finally she spoke again. Her voice slightly less sharp. I do not forgive you. I want to be very clear about that. I will never forgive what you did to me and Oliver. She paused. But I also do not want to carry this anger anymore. It is exhausting and it is poisoning me. So I am choosing to let it go. Not for you. For me. Because I deserve peace after everything I survived. You do deserve peace. You deserve everything good in this world. Then stay away from us. Her eyes held no room for negotiation. Let me live my life with Gabriel. Let Oliver grow up with the family we have built. Do not disrupt our lives because you suddenly feel guilty after seeing us happy. Can you do that? Every instinct Raymond possessed screamed to say no. To demand a chance to be part of Oliver's life. To ask for something that would connect him to his son. But Vivian's expression held no space for negotiation. She was giving him a gift. The gift of clear boundaries. The gift of knowing exactly what she needed from him. Yes. He heard himself say it. I will stay away. I will not contact you again. I will let you live your life without me in it. Something flickered in Vivian's expression. Not gratitude. Perhaps just relief that he was not going to fight her on this. Thank you. She turned to leave, then paused and looked back at him one final time. I hope you find whatever it is you are looking for, Raymond. I really do. But you will not find it with us. We are done. Then she walked away. Her sundress flowed in the morning breeze as she moved up the path toward wherever Gabriel waited for her. Toward their home and their life and their future that had no space for Raymond in it. He watched until she disappeared from sight. Then he collapsed back onto the bench and buried his face in his hands. She was right about everything. The letter had been selfish. His guilt was useless. His apology changed nothing. But walking away now, truly walking away forever, felt like dying. And Raymond understood with devastating clarity that this was exactly what he deserved. 6 months crawled past in a blur of work and silence. Raymond kept his promise. He did not contact Vivian or Oliver. He did not drive past their house or attend events where they might be. He threw himself into his non-profit work with intensity that bordered on obsession. helping other families since he could never help his own. The anonymous trust fund continued its monthly deposits. That was his only connection now. Money that would arrive without explanation when Oliver needed it. But even that felt hollow. One Wednesday afternoon, Raymond sat in his office reviewing grant applications when his phone rang. An unknown number. He answered without thinking. Hello. The voice on the other end made his blood run cold. This is Dorothy Holloway. Something was wrong. He could hear it in her tone. The anger that had characterized their last conversation was gone, replaced by something far more terrifying. Fear. What happened? Raymond was already standing, already reaching for his keys. It is Oliver. The world stopped. He is in the hospital. Has been for 3 days. The doctors could not figure out what was wrong. High fever that would not break. Trouble breathing. Fatigue so severe he could barely stay awake. Raymond was moving through his office door before she finished speaking. What hospital? What room number? Sacred Heart. Pediatric intensive care. Room 412. His hand trembled so badly he could barely hold the phone. But Raymond, wait. You need to understand something. Vivian does not know I am calling you. She would be furious if she found out. But I need you to listen to me very carefully. I am listening. The doctors finally figured out what is wrong. Oliver has a rare blood disorder. He needs a bone marrow transplant. They found a match through the registry, but the donor family is demanding $180,000 to go through with it. Raymond's stomach dropped. Insurance is calling it experimental. Will not cover the full cost. We have scraped together maybe $65,000 between all of us. We are short over $100,000 and the donor family says they will not wait. How long? 48 hours. Maybe less. Raymond was already in his car. Engine starting. Pulling out of the parking lot. Give me the hospital administrator's contact information. I will wire the money today. Right now. Whatever they need. Raymond, wait. Dorothy's voice carried warning. You cannot just show up there. Vivian thinks she can handle this herself. She has been calling every charity and every foundation trying to raise money. If she sees you just appear with your money. I do not care what she thinks of me. His voice was harder than he had ever heard it. My son needs a transplant and I have the money. I am coming. If you do this, there is no staying anonymous anymore. She will know you paid for it. She will know you were involved. Good. Let her know. Let her hate me for it if that is what she needs. As long as Oliver gets what he needs, I do not care about anything else. The line was quiet for a moment. Then Dorothy spoke again and her voice had changed. The hostility that had defined every interaction between them was gone, replaced by something that almost sounded like respect. You have changed. No. I just finally understand what matters. And it is not my pride or my comfort or my need to be forgiven. It is making sure my son survives. Raymond. Dorothy's voice caught. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. Raymond pressed harder on the accelerator. Just tell the staff I am coming to handle payment. He ended the call and drove towards Sacred Heart Hospital faster than any speed limit allowed. Somewhere in that building his son was dying. And for the first time in his life, Raymond Aldrich was going to show up when it actually mattered. Sacred Heart Hospital looked exactly the same as it had 12 years ago. The same automatic doors. The same antiseptic smell. The same oppressive weight of lives hanging in balance behind every closed door. Raymond had walked away from this building once before. Had left Vivian bleeding and terrified in an emergency room while he retreated to the safety of his comfortable life. Had convinced himself that his absence was temporary when he knew even then that it was permanent. He would not walk away again. The elevator to the pediatric intensive care unit seemed to take forever. Raymond's hands trembled against his sides as the floors counted upward. 4, 5, 6. The doors opened onto a hallway that smelled of disinfectant and fear. Room 412 was at the end of the corridor. Through the small window in the door, Raymond could see everything he had missed and everything he had destroyed. Oliver lay in the hospital bed looking impossibly small and fragile. Tubes snaked from his thin arms. Monitors beeped in steady rhythm beside him. An oxygen cannula rested beneath his nose. His dark curls were matted against the pillow, and his skin had a greyish pallor that made Raymond's stomach clench with terror. Vivian sat beside the bed holding Oliver's hand. Her face was hollow with exhaustion. Dark circles ringed her eyes. She looked like she had not slept in days. Like she had been holding herself together through sheer force of will while her world collapsed around her. Gabriel stood on the other side of the bed. His hand rested on Vivian's shoulder in a gesture of quiet support. He wore scrubs from his shift at the rehabilitation center. He had probably come straight from work. Had probably been coming straight from work every day since Oliver was admitted. They were a family in crisis, united in fear and love and determination to save their son. Raymond had no right to be here. But Oliver was dying and Raymond had the money to save him. That simple fact overrode everything else. He knocked on the door. Gabriel looked up first. His expression shifted from exhausted to alert to furious in the space of a single heartbeat. He said something sharp to Vivian and moved toward the door with the clear intention of blocking Raymond's entry. But before Gabriel reached it, the door opened from inside. Dorothy stood there. Her face was drawn with worry, but her eyes held something Raymond had never seen directed at him before. Something almost like hope. "Let him in." Her voice left no room for argument. "Geneva, what the hell?" Gabriel's protest was immediate. "I called him. Oliver needs that transplant. Raymond has the money. Let him in." Gabriel's jaw clenched so tight Raymond could see muscles jumping beneath the skin. But after a long moment where protective anger warred with desperate pragmatism, he stepped aside. Raymond entered the room. His entire world narrowed to the small figure in that hospital bed. Oliver looked even more fragile than he had in the NICU photographs from the investigation report. Even more vulnerable than when Raymond had watched him from a distance at school pickup months ago. His breathing was labored despite the oxygen. His eyes were closed. His small hands lay still against the white sheets. He was so young, so small, and he was fighting for his life while Raymond stood frozen in the doorway trying to remember how to breathe. Vivian rose slowly from her chair. Her eyes met Raymond's across the room and he saw everything there. Fury, exhaustion, fear, and beneath it all the particular desperation of a mother watching her child slip away. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was barely a whisper, scraped raw from days of crying and praying and refusing to sleep. "Dorothy called me. Told me about the transplant." Raymond forced his voice to remain steady. "I have already wired the money to the hospital. Whatever you need beyond that, I will pay for it. Specialists. Experimental treatments. Anything. Just tell me what Oliver needs." Something flickered in Vivian's expression. Not gratitude. Something far more complicated and painful. "We do not need your money." Gabriel's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "We can handle this ourselves. You do not have time to handle it." Raymond kept his eyes on Vivian rather than Gabriel. "The donor family wants payment immediately or they walk away. I have it. Oliver can have his transplant today if you stop arguing with me and let me help." Vivian's eyes filled with tears that started spilling down her cheeks. "Why are you doing this?" "Because he is my son." The words came out before Raymond could stop them. "And I failed him once. I will not fail him again. He is not your son." Gabriel cut in with protective fury radiating from every line of his body. "You do not get to call him that. You lost that right years ago. Damien." Vivian's voice was soft but commanding in a way that cut through the tension like a blade. "Give us a moment. Please." Gabriel looked like he wanted to refuse. Like he wanted to physically remove Raymond from this room and this situation. His hands flexed at his sides and his jaw remained clenched with the effort of restraint. But after a long moment where he clearly wrestled with himself, he nodded stiffly. "I will be right outside." He moved past Raymond with deliberate proximity. A warning without words. Then the door closed behind him with a quiet click that sounded final. Dorothy followed without being asked. She shot Raymond a look that was part warning and part something else he could not quite identify. Then Raymond and Vivian were alone. 12 years of damage and pain stretched between them. Their son lay unconscious in the hospital bed. The monitors beeped in steady rhythm. Life measured in electronic pulses while two people who had once loved each other stood on opposite sides of a chasm that could never be crossed. The money is already transferred. Raymond broke the silence because someone had to. You do not have to talk to me. You do not have to thank me. I will leave right now if that is what you want. But please let them do the transplant. Please let me give him this chance. Vivian looked down at Oliver. Her hand still held his small fingers with such gentleness that it looked like she was afraid he might break. When she spoke, her voice was fracturing into pieces. I thought I could do this alone. Thought I could fix everything by myself like I have been doing for years. But I cannot fix this. I cannot make him better no matter how hard I try or how much I love him. She looked up at Raymond. Devastation written across every feature. I am so scared. I am terrified that I am going to lose him. Something shattered inside Raymond's chest. He moved around the bed without thinking and pulled Vivian into his arms. She stiffened for a moment. Every muscle in her body rejecting this contact. Then she collapsed against his chest and sobbed like her soul was breaking into pieces too small to ever reassemble. Raymond held her and felt his own tears falling into her hair. Felt years of walls crumbling under the weight of shared terror and grief. They stood like that for a long time. Two people who had destroyed each other finding momentary shelter in shared fear for the child they had created together. He is strong. Raymond whispered the words against her hair. His voice rough with emotion. He is your son. He has fought before and won. He will fight again and he will survive this. You do not know that. You cannot promise that. No. But I know he has you and Gabriel and Dorothy and people who love him more than anything fighting for him with everything they have. That has to count for something. That has to tip the scales in his favor. Vivian pulled away eventually. She wiped her eyes roughly with the back of her hand and seemed to remember who she was talking to. The walls went back up. Not as high as before but present nonetheless. Thank you for the money. I mean it. Her voice had steadied. Controlled again. But after this you need to stay gone. I cannot handle having you in our lives. It hurts too much to have you here. I know. I understand. I will go. Raymond took a step back. Creating distance she clearly needed. But I need you to promise me something first. Anything. Promise me you will call if something changes. If there are complications with the transplant. If Oliver gets worse. If there is anything else he needs. Promise me I will know what is happening. Vivian hesitated. Clearly torn between her need to protect herself and her terror for Oliver. I promise. Now go. Before Gabriel comes back and we have a fight in front of Oliver. Raymond looked down at his son one more time. He bent and kissed the top of Oliver's fevered head very gently, breathing in the smell of hospital soap and illness and the particular scent that belonged only to this child he barely knew but loved more than his own life. Fight. He whispered the word against Oliver's dark curls. Please fight hard, Oliver. You are stronger than you know. Then he walked out of that hospital room without looking back. Even though every instinct screamed at him to stay. Gabriel was waiting in the hallway. Arms crossed. Expression murderous. A physical barrier between Raymond and any further intrusion. The money is in the hospital account. Raymond spoke before Gabriel could. Do whatever you need to do for Oliver. Get him the transplant. Save his life. I am leaving now. He started to walk past but Gabriel's voice stopped him. Why? Raymond turned back. Why what? Why pay for this? You could have just stayed gone. Could have let us struggle and drown and fail. Why come back now with money? Raymond met Gabriel's eyes directly, not flinching from the anger and suspicion he saw there. Because no matter what role I have or do not have in Oliver's life, he deserves every chance to survive. And if I can give him that chance, then I will. Every single time. No matter what it costs me. Something shifted in Gabriel's expression. Not forgiveness. Not acceptance. Just a slight softening. A recognition that maybe Raymond was marginally less terrible than Gabriel had believed. If he makes it through this. Gabriel's voice was rough with emotion he was clearly trying to control. It will be because of you. I need you to know that. I hate that it is true. But it is true. Raymond nodded once. His throat too tight for words. Then he walked away before he could break down completely. He got in his car and drove back to his empty apartment while his son fought for his life in a hospital bed 200 miles away. And he waited. Just like he always did. Waiting for news. Waiting for judgment. Waiting to find out if his son would survive. The call came 3 days later. Raymond had not slept. Had not eaten. Had simply existed in suspended animation. Checking his phone every few minutes. Pacing his apartment until the floors seemed to wear grooves beneath his feet. When Vivian's name appeared on his screen, he answered before the first ring finished. Hello. His voice came out rough. Desperate. The surgery was successful. Vivian sounded exhausted, but the terror that had characterized their last conversation was gone. Replaced by something almost like relief. Oliver's body is accepting the donor cells. He is still in critical condition, but the doctors are cautiously optimistic. Raymond sat down heavily on his couch. His legs suddenly unable to support his weight. He is going to be okay. We do not know that yet. But he is fighting. Every day he gets a little stronger. She paused. I wanted you to know. Because I promised I would call if anything changed. Thank you. Raymond's voice cracked. Thank you for telling me. Another pause. Longer this time. The hospital administrator told me the full amount you transferred. It was more than we needed. Almost twice what the donor family was demanding. I wanted there to be money for anything else that came up. Complications. Extended care. Whatever Oliver might need. Vivian was quiet for a moment. You really have changed. No. I just finally understand what I should have understood 12 years ago. That nothing matters except the people we love. That no amount of success or money or achievement means anything if the people who should be able to count on us cannot. Raymond. Yes. Stay away. I mean it. This does not change anything between us. I needed your money and I will be grateful for it forever. But I do not want you in our lives. I know. Can you accept that? Really accept it. Not just agree and then show up again when it suits you. Raymond closed his eyes. Yes. I can accept it. I will stay away. Good. The line went dead. Raymond sat alone in his apartment holding the phone long after the call ended. His son was going to survive. That should have been enough. Should have brought some peace. Some relief. But all Raymond felt was the particular agony of being necessary but not wanted. Of having his money matter when his presence did not. Of saving a life he would never be allowed to know. He had earned this exile. And now he had to learn how to live in it. Raymond could not truly stay away from the hospital. He told himself he would. Told Vivian he would. Made promises he fully intended to keep. But 3 days after Oliver's surgery, he found himself parked outside Sacred Heart Hospital at 7 in the morning. Watching the entrance. Knowing his son was somewhere inside getting stronger every day. He did not go in. Did not try to see anyone. Just sat there in his car for hours. Waiting for news that would never come because he had promised to stay away. Dorothy called him that evening. He answered immediately. How is he? Better. Stronger every day. The doctors are amazed at how well his body is responding. Raymond exhaled slowly. Relief flooding through him. Good. That is good. He paused. Does Vivian know you are calling me? No. She thinks you are gone for good like you promised. Dorothy's voice carried a familiar sharpness. I am only telling you because you deserve to know your money saved him. But you need to stay away. Let them breathe and recover without complications. I understand. I will not come back. But he did come back. The next day. And the day after that. And every day for the 2 weeks Oliver remained in the hospital. He parked in different spots. At different times. Never stayed longer than a few hours. Never tried to enter the building or make contact with anyone. Just sat there. Knowing Oliver was inside. Knowing his son was fighting and winning and getting stronger. It was pathetic and he knew it. Obsessive and unhealthy and solving nothing. But he could not stop. On the day Oliver was discharged, Raymond watched from down the street as they brought him out. Gabriel carried Oliver wrapped in blankets despite the warm weather. Vivian walked beside them, fussing over the blankets and asking questions of the nurse who accompanied them. Dorothy followed with bags and balloons and the accumulated detritus of 2 weeks in the hospital. Oliver looked thin and tired but gloriously impossibly alive. His eyes were open. His color was better. He was talking to Gabriel with animated gestures that made all the adults laugh. They loaded him into Gabriel's car with careful attention. Vivian climbed in beside him in the back seat. Dorothy took the front passenger position. Gabriel paused at the driver's door and looked around the parking lot with the particular alertness of someone who sensed he was being watched. His gaze swept past Raymond's car without stopping. Then he got in and they drove away. Toward home. Toward recovery. Toward the life Raymond had helped save but would never be allowed to share. Raymond sat in his car for another hour after they left, staring at the empty space where they had been. Then he drove back to his apartment and began the long process of learning to stay away for real. 3 years passed. Raymond rebuilt a life that functioned even if it never quite felt like living. He expanded his work at the non-profit, took on more responsibility, helped more families find housing and stability and the basic security that everyone deserved. The work was meaningful. It gave his days structure and purpose beyond his own regrets. He dated occasionally. Kind women who deserved someone capable of being fully present. He tried. He really did. But something essential in him remained locked away. Reserved for a family that did not want him. For a son who did not know him. For a life he had destroyed and could never rebuild. The anonymous trust fund continued its monthly deposits. Oliver would never know where the money came from. Would never feel the weight of obligation or gratitude. Would just have resources waiting for him whenever he needed them. Raymond thought about Oliver every day. Wondered what subjects he liked in school. What his friends were like. Whether he had inherited Raymond's perfectionism or Vivian's warmth. Whether he was happy. But he kept his promise. Did not contact them. Did not drive past their house. Did not attend events where they might be. He had learned at last to stay away. Then a letter arrived that changed everything. The handwriting on the envelope was careful and slightly uneven. The letters of a child who was still developing fine motor control. Raymond's name and address were written with obvious concentration. Each letter formed with deliberate precision. The return address was Vivian's house. Raymond's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. Dear Raymond. My name is Oliver. I am 14 years old. My mom told me about you last year. I found some papers that did not make sense and I asked questions and she finally told me everything. About how you and her were together when she got pregnant. About how you left. About how you paid for my transplant when I was sick. I have been thinking about this for a long time. Almost a year. My dad Gabriel says I should do whatever feels right and take as long as I need to figure out what that is. I have questions. Do I look like you? We have never met so I do not know. Do we have stuff in common? Like hobbies or foods we like or things we are good at? Are you sorry you left? Mom says you were scared but I'm 14 and even I know that is a bad reason to leave someone. My dad is my real dad. Gabriel I mean. He is the one who shows up every day and helps with homework and comes to my games and taught me to drive a car in the parking lot even though I am too young. He is my dad and that will never change. But I guess I'm curious about where I came from. About the other half of my genetics or whatever. Would you want to meet me? Not to be my dad or anything. Damien is my dad. But maybe just to talk. To answer some questions. To let me see your face and know where I got certain things from. You do not have to write back. Mom says I should not get my hopes up. She says you might not want to be reminded of the past. But I wanted to ask anyway. Oliver. Raymond read the letter 17 times. His hands shook so badly the paper rattled. Tears streamed down his face and dropped onto the ink, making some of the words blur. His son had written to him. After everything. After all the years and all the distance and all the damage. Oliver had questions. Oliver wanted to meet him. Not as a father. Oliver had made that abundantly clear. Gabriel was his father. That would never change. But as something. As a source of information. As a biological curiosity. As the other half of his genetics. It was more than Raymond had dared to hope for. More than he deserved. He sat down immediately to write back. Dear Oliver, thank you for your letter. I cannot tell you how much it means to me that you reached out. I have thought about you every single day since I learned you existed. I have wondered what kind of person you were becoming. What you liked. What you were good at. Whether you were happy. You asked if I want to meet you. The answer is yes. More than I can possibly express. But I want to be honest with you first because you deserve honesty even when it is uncomfortable. I did leave your mother when she needed me. I was scared and selfish and I made the worst choice of my life. Your mother deserved better. You deserved better. I will regret what I did until the day I die. Gabriel is your real dad in every way that counts. You are absolutely right about that. The man who shows up every day. Who loves you without hesitation. Who has been there for homework and games and ordinary moments. That is what makes someone a father. I gave you DNA. Gabriel gave you everything else. I would be honored to meet you and answer your questions. But only if your mom and Gabriel are comfortable with it. Only if you understand that I am not trying to replace Gabriel or change your family in any way. You asked if you look like me. The answer is yes. You have my eyes exactly. The same shape and color. You have my grandmother's cheekbones. But you have your mother's smile and her warmth and her strength. The best parts of you come from her. You asked if we have things in common. I do not know yet. That is something I would love to find out if you are willing to tell me. You asked if I am sorry I left. Yes. I am sorry. More sorry than I can explain in a letter. Leaving your mother and missing your life is my biggest regret. You were never a mistake. You were always wanted. I was just too much of a coward to stay. If your mom and Gabriel say it is okay, I would very much like to meet you. If they say no, I will respect that decision completely. Whatever happens, I want you to know that I am proud of the person you are becoming. Even from a distance I can see that you are brave and thoughtful and kind. Those qualities come from the people who raised you. Gabriel and your mother and your grandmother made you who you are. I had nothing to do with it. But I am grateful beyond words that you exist. Raymond. He read the letter 3 times. Changed a few words. Read it again. Then he sealed it and mailed it before he could second-guess himself. 2 weeks later a response arrived. Not from Oliver. From Vivian. Raymond. Oliver showed me your letter. I have read it approximately 50 times trying to decide if you mean what you wrote. Gabriel and I have talked about this extensively. He is less worried than I am. He says Oliver is old enough to understand complicated truths and that meeting you might help him process his own identity in healthy ways. So against every instinct I have, we are agreeing to one meeting. Supervised. Public location. Strict rules. Here is what you need to understand. 1. You do not get to call yourself Oliver's father. You are Raymond. That is all. 2. You answer his questions honestly but appropriately for his age. 3. If Oliver seems uncomfortable at any point, we leave immediately. 4. This is one meeting. It might be the only one. Do not assume there will be more. 5. No expensive gifts. You do not get to buy his affection. 6. Remember that Gabriel and I are his parents. You are a biological footnote. If you can agree to all of these terms, we will meet next Saturday at 2 in the afternoon. Riverside Coffee on Main Street. We will both be there the entire time. If you cannot agree, or if you cannot handle these limitations, write back now. Do not waste our time or hurt my son. Vivian. Raymond read the rules 3 times. Each one was reasonable. Each one reminded him of his place. He wrote back immediately. I agree to every condition. I will see you Saturday at 2. Thank you for giving me this chance. Then he spent the next 6 days terrified that he would somehow destroy the fragile opportunity he had been given. Saturday arrived with agonizing slowness. Raymond changed his clothes 4 times. Finally settled on jeans and a casual button-down. Nothing expensive. Nothing that would create distance or suggest he was trying too hard. He arrived at Riverside Coffee 45 minutes early. Ordered a drink he did not taste. Sat at a table near the window and tried to control his breathing. At exactly 2 o'clock he saw them approaching. Oliver walked between Vivian and Gabriel. He was taller than Raymond had expected. 14 years old and already showing signs of the man he would become. His dark curls were shorter now. His face had lost some of its childhood roundness. But his eyes were still Raymond's eyes. Still held that particular intensity Raymond recognized from his own mirror. They entered the coffee shop and stood near the door for a moment. Vivian's hand rested on Oliver's shoulder. Gabriel stood slightly behind them. A united front. Then Oliver moved forward alone. He crossed the coffee shop with careful deliberation. Each step measured. His expression was serious and guarded in a way that reminded Raymond painfully of Vivian. He stopped across the table from Raymond. "You look different than I thought." His voice was deeper than Raymond had expected, hovering between childhood and adolescence. "Yeah. How did you think I would look? Bigger maybe? Meaner? I do not know. Mom never had pictures of you, so I had to imagine." Raymond gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Do you want to sit down?" Oliver glanced back at his parents. Vivian nodded once. Then Oliver Saturday. For a long moment they just looked at each other. Two strangers connected by biology and separated by everything else. "You do look like me." Raymond spoke carefully. "Same eyes. Same shape to your jaw. But you have your mom's expressions. The way you hold yourself is all her." Oliver seemed to consider this. "People at school say I look like my dad. Gabriel, I mean. They do not know he is not my biological father." "What do you tell them?" "I just let them think whatever they want. It is easier than explaining." "That makes sense." Raymond picked up his coffee and set it down again without drinking. "You can ask me whatever you want, Oliver. I will answer honestly." Oliver studied him for a moment. Then the questions came. "Why did you leave?" "Because I was a coward." Raymond did not flinch from the words. "Your mom was pregnant and I knew my whole life would change. I was not ready to be brave, so I ran. It was the worst thing I have ever done." "She was in the hospital. She told me she called you and you did not come." "That is true. She needed me and I turned off my phone and pretended she did not exist. There is no excuse for that. I was selfish and scared and I hurt her in ways I can never fix." Oliver absorbed this with the particular intensity of a teenager processing difficult information. "Did you know about me? That I existed, I mean." "Not until 3 years ago. I convinced myself the pregnancy had ended. I told myself that lie for 11 years because the truth was too hard to face. So when you paid for my transplant, that was the first time I had done anything for you. The first time I had shown up when it mattered." Oliver nodded slowly. "Mom says you have changed. That you used to be rich and powerful and now you work at a non-profit helping homeless people." "That is true." "Why?" "Because I finally realized that success does not mean anything if you hurt the people who should be able to count on you. I spent years building an empire on top of my mistakes. Eventually the weight of what I had done became too heavy to ignore." Oliver leaned back in his chair and looked at Raymond with an expression that seemed far older than 14. "My dad says people make mistakes but they can try to do better. He says what matters is not the mistake but what you do after." "Your dad is right. Gabriel is a wise man. He is the best person I know." There was no challenge in Oliver's voice. Just simple statement of fact. "He is probably the best person I know too." Raymond meant it. "And I have only met him twice." Oliver almost smiled at that. The expression flickered across his face and disappeared before it could fully form. "Can I ask you something else?" "Anything." "Do you wish you could be my dad? My real dad, I mean." Raymond's heart contracted painfully. He looked at this beautiful boy who had his eyes and Vivian's strength and another man's values. He could lie. Could say no. Could pretend the longing did not exist. But Oliver deserved honesty. "Part of me wishes I could have been." Raymond spoke carefully. "But that is my guilt talking. Not what is best for you. Gabriel is your real dad. He earned that every day for years. I gave you genetics but he gave you everything else. So no. I do not wish I could replace him. I just wish I had been brave enough to be there from the start." Oliver seemed satisfied with this answer. He nodded and glanced back at his parents who sat at a table near the door, watching, ready to intervene if needed. I made something. Oliver pulled a folded paper from his pocket. At school. A family tree project. I wanted to show you. He unfolded it carefully and laid it on the table between them. The tree had two main branches at the top. One side showed Vivian's family. Her parents and grandparents documented with names and dates. The other side showed Raymond's name with a question mark beside it. I could not fill in your side because I do not know anything about your family. Below both branches Oliver's name appeared. His photograph carefully attached. And beside it a decorated box containing Gabriel's photograph with a note written in careful handwriting. Dad. Not biological but real. Raymond stared at that tree for a long moment. His name was included. His place in Oliver's history acknowledged. But Gabriel's position was honored and protected and clearly more important. What do you think? Oliver's voice carried a note of nervousness. I think it is absolutely perfect. Raymond's voice caught. You did an amazing job. Some kids asked why I have two dads on my tree. I told them families can be different shapes. My teacher said that was a good answer. Your teacher was right. Families come in all kinds of configurations. What matters is not the shape but the love inside it. Oliver carefully refolded the paper and put it back in his pocket. I should probably go. My parents are waiting. Of course. Raymond stood when Oliver did. Thank you for meeting me. For giving me a chance to answer your questions. Oliver hesitated. Then he extended his hand. Raymond shook it. The grip was firm for a 14-year-old. Confident. Maybe we can do this again sometime. Not a lot. But sometimes. I would like that very much. Whatever you are comfortable with. Oliver nodded once. Then he turned and walked back to his parents. Gabriel put his hand on Oliver's shoulder. Vivian leaned in to ask something. Oliver responded and both adults looked toward Raymond with expressions he could not quite read. Then they turned and left the coffee shop. Raymond sat back down at the table and stared at his cold coffee for a long time. His son had met him. Had asked questions. Had shown him a family tree that included Raymond's name. It was not forgiveness. Was not a relationship. Was not anything close to what Raymond had destroyed when he walked away. But it was something. And for now something was more than enough. The meetings continued. Not frequently. Not regularly. Just occasionally when Oliver felt the need to ask questions or share something or simply see the man whose eyes he had inherited. Vivian set the terms for each meeting. Location and duration and supervision. Raymond accepted every condition without argument. He understood that these boundaries were gifts. That Vivian was extending more grace than he deserved by allowing contact at all. Over the next year, Raymond learned his son in fragments. Oliver loved science but found English class frustrating. He was good at basketball but preferred individual sports like swimming and track. He had his mother's competitive streak and his father's patience. His father. Gabriel. Raymond had learned to think of Gabriel that way without jealousy or resentment. Gabriel had earned the title. Raymond had forfeited it. They talked about ordinary things mostly. School and friends and Oliver's plans for the future. Sometimes Oliver asked harder questions. About Raymond's childhood. About why people made choices they knew were wrong. About whether regret ever went away. Raymond answered honestly every time. Even when honesty made him look terrible. On Oliver's 16th birthday, Raymond received an unexpected invitation. The text came from Vivian. Oliver wants you at his birthday dinner. Small gathering. Family only. You would be included as extended family. Not as a parent figure. Gabriel and I discussed it. We are willing to allow it if you can follow the established boundaries. Raymond stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. I would be honored to attend. Thank you for including me. The dinner was held at their house. The modest home with the basketball hoop in the driveway that Raymond had watched from a distance years ago. He arrived with a gift that had cost thought rather than money. A journal with Oliver's name embossed on the cover. Inside he had written a single line. For recording the adventures ahead. With hope that some of them might include me. Oliver opened it in front of everyone. Read the inscription. Looked at Raymond with an expression that almost qualified as warmth. Thanks. This is actually really cool. Across the table, Gabriel caught Raymond's eye and nodded once. A gesture of acknowledgement. Perhaps even acceptance. Vivian watched the exchange with an expression Raymond could not quite read. Guarded still, but less hostile than it had been. After dinner, Raymond helped clear the table. Found himself standing beside Dorothy in the kitchen drying dishes while she washed. You really have changed. Her voice carried none of the sharp edges he remembered from their earlier conversations. I had to. The person I was destroyed everything that mattered. Dorothy handed him another plate. Gabriel is a good man. The best man I have ever known besides my husband. I know. Oliver is lucky to have him. So is Vivian. Raymond set the dried plate in the cabinet. I know that too. Dorothy turned off the water and looked at him directly. I spent years hating you. Blaming you for everything my daughter suffered. For every tear she cried. For every struggle she faced. You had every right to hate me. I did. She dried her hands on a dish towel. But hate takes energy. And I'm getting too old to waste energy on people who are not worth it. Raymond was not sure how to respond to that. You are worth it now. Dorothy's voice was matter of fact. Not because of the money. Not because you saved Oliver's life. But because you show up. You accept the boundaries. You do not try to be more than you have earned. Thank you. Do not thank me. I am just stating facts. She picked up another dish. Now finished drying. These plates will not put themselves away. The years accumulated. Raymond watched Oliver grow from a teenager into a young man. He attended high school graduation from the back row. Saw Oliver receive a scholarship to study marine biology. Celebrated silently while the family cheered from better seats. He was always on the edges. Always slightly outside the circle of immediate family. But he was there. When Oliver started college, Raymond offered to help with expenses. Oliver refused politely but firmly. My parents have it covered. And my scholarship. But thank you. My parents. Gabriel and Vivian. The people who had earned that title through years of presence and sacrifice. Raymond accepted the refusal without argument. The trust fund sat waiting for whenever Oliver might need it. At 22, Oliver graduated with honors. Raymond sat in the audience this time. Not in the back row but in the section reserved for family. Vivian had sent him the ticket without explanation. After the ceremony, Oliver found him in the crowd. Thank you for coming. Oliver was taller now. Broader. A man fully formed. But his eyes were still Raymond's eyes. Still held that particular intensity. Thank you for inviting me. Raymond looked at his son with pride he had done nothing to earn. You have accomplished something remarkable. Your parents must be incredibly proud. They are. So is my grandmother. Oliver paused. I am glad you were here to see it. Raymond's throat tightened. So am I. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Two men connected by biology and separated by history. Finding their way toward something that had no name. Gabriel approached with Vivian beside him. We are going to dinner to celebrate. Gabriel's voice carried the easy authority of a man secure in his position. You are welcome to join us. Raymond looked at Vivian. Her expression was neutral. Neither welcoming nor rejecting. I appreciate the invitation. But this should be a family celebration. He shook Gabriel's hand. Thank you for raising him to be the man he has become. Gabriel's grip was firm. He made it easy. Raymond turned to Vivian. Thank you for letting me be part of his life. Even in a small way. Vivian studied him for a moment. Then she did something she had never done before. She hugged him. Brief and slightly awkward. But real. Take care of yourself, Raymond. You too. He watched them walk away. Oliver between his parents. Dorothy following behind. A family complete and whole and moving toward the celebration Raymond would not share. But he had been there. Had witnessed the moment. Had been included even if only temporarily. It was enough. It had to be enough. 5 years later Oliver got married. The wedding was held in a garden venue surrounded by flowers and fairy lights. Oliver looked handsome in his suit. His bride looked radiant in her gown. The guests filled white chairs arranged in careful rows. Raymond sat in the third row. Close enough to see but not so close as to presume importance. Gabriel walked Oliver to the altar. Not down the aisle like a bride but beside him like a partner. Father and son moving together toward the next chapter. The ceremony was beautiful. Traditional vows spoken with evident emotion. Rings exchanged with hands that trembled slightly. When the minister pronounced them, married, the crowd erupted in applause. Raymond clapped with everyone else. Tears streaming down his face that he did not try to hide. At the reception, Oliver found him standing alone near the edge of the dance floor. "Thank you for coming. I would not have missed it for anything." Raymond looked at his son with the particular love of a parent watching a child begin a new life. "You looked happy up there. Both of you." "We are happy." Oliver glanced toward his new spouse dancing with Vivian. "I wanted to tell you something. Whatever it is, I am listening." Oliver took a breath. "When I was a kid, I used to wonder about you. Used to imagine what it would be like if you came back. If you showed up one day and became my father." Raymond's heart clenched. "I thought it would fix something. Fill some hole I did not even know was there." Oliver looked at him directly. "But then I got older and I realized the hole was not about you. It was about understanding who I was. Where I came from. Why I have certain traits and habits and ways of thinking." Raymond nodded slowly. "Meeting you helped with that. Getting to know you over the years. Seeing the parts of myself that came from you. I am grateful for every moment you have shared with me." "I know you are." Oliver's expression softened. "My dad Gabriel is still my dad. That will never change. But you are something too. I am not sure what to call it. But you matter to me. In your own way." Raymond could not speak. His throat had closed completely. "Anyway." Oliver straightened. "I just wanted you to know that." Then he returned to his wedding. To his new spouse and his parents and the future waiting for him. Raymond stood alone at the edge of the dance floor and wept. Not from sadness. From something more complicated. A mixture of grief for what he had lost and gratitude for what he had been allowed to keep. He mattered. In his own way. After everything. After all the damage and distance and years of exile. He mattered. Dorothy found him there a few minutes later. She was older now. Moving more slowly. But her eyes were still sharp. "He loves you." She stood beside him watching the dancers. "Not the way he loves Gabriel. But in his own way. I know. You showed up. Year after year. Meeting after meeting. Never asking for more than you were given. I did not deserve more." "No, you did not." Dorothy looked at him directly. "But you earned it anyway. Through patience and presence and accepting your place." Raymond wiped his eyes. "I never thought I would have any place at all." "Neither did I." Dorothy's voice carried something that sounded almost like respect. "But here you are. Here I am." They stood together in comfortable silence. Two people who had started as enemies and ended as something else. Not friends exactly. But not adversaries either. The music changed. Oliver and his spouse took the floor for another dance. Raymond watched his son move with the particular grace of a happy man. Watched the love in Oliver's face when he looked at his partner. Watched the family he had almost destroyed thriving without him at the center. And for the first time in his life, Raymond understood what redemption actually looked like. Not dramatic forgiveness. Not restoration of what was lost. Not a triumphant return to the life he had forfeited. Just this. A place on the edges. A role without a name. The privilege of witnessing joy he had done nothing to create but everything to nearly prevent. He would keep showing up. Every wedding and graduation and ordinary moment that Oliver allowed. Not because he deserved it, but because Oliver was generous enough to include him. And that generosity, that grace extended by a young man toward the father who had abandoned him, that was more than Raymond had ever earned. That was exactly what he had finally learned to accept. Years later, Raymond sat in a hospital waiting room. Older now. Gray hair. Slower movements. but the same eyes that Oliver had inherited. The same intensity that had passed from generation to generation. Oliver burst through the doors with his spouse close behind. Both of them wearing the particular expression of terrified joy that Raymond recognized from photographs of himself decades ago. "Dad." Oliver saw Raymond and crossed the waiting room in 3 strides. "She is here. The baby is here. They are both healthy. Congratulations." Raymond rose and embraced his son. Held him for a long moment. "I am so proud of you. Do you want to meet her?" Raymond hesitated. "Is that appropriate? I do not want to intrude. Gabriel and Mom are already in there. So is Grandma Dorothy." Oliver's eyes were bright with tears and exhaustion and overwhelming love. "You should be there too." They walked together down the hospital corridor. Father and son. Connected by biology and history and years of carefully rebuilt trust. The room was small but filled with people. Vivian sat beside the bed holding a bundle wrapped in pink blankets. Gabriel stood behind her with his hand on her shoulder. Dorothy sat in the corner chair with tears streaming down her face. Oliver's spouse lay in the bed looking exhausted and radiant. And in Vivian's arms, a tiny perfect baby girl with dark curls and eyes that had not yet decided what color they would become. "Everyone, this is Eleanor." Oliver's voice cracked with emotion. "Eleanor Grace Torres." The family passed the baby carefully from person to person. Vivian to Gabriel. Gabriel to Dorothy. Dorothy to Oliver. Then Oliver looked at Raymond. "Do you want to hold her?" Raymond's hands trembled as he accepted the tiny bundle. Cradled his granddaughter against his chest. Looked down at her face and saw echoes of everyone. Oliver and his spouse. Vivian and Gabriel. Generations of love converging in this small perfect person. "Hello, Eleanor." His voice was barely a whisper. "I am your grandfather, Raymond. I am probably not going to be around as much as your other grandparents. But I want you to know something." The baby's eyes opened briefly. Unfocused and newborn but seeming to look directly at him. "Your family loves you more than you will ever know. Your parents. Your grandparents. Everyone in this room would do anything for you. You are surrounded by people who will show up for you. Who will be there when you need them. Who will never walk away." He kissed her forehead gently. "That is the most important thing I can tell you. You are loved. You are wanted. You are home." He looked up and found everyone watching him. Vivian with tears in her eyes. Gabriel with his arm around her. Dorothy nodding slowly. Oliver and his spouse holding hands. "Thank you." Vivian spoke quietly. "For being here. For being part of this." Raymond handed Eleanor back to Oliver carefully. "Thank you for letting me be part of it." The room was silent for a moment. The kind of silence that holds too much to express in words. Then Dorothy cleared her throat. "Well, this baby is going to need stories. And I have plenty of embarrassing ones about everyone in this room." The tension broke. Laughter filled the space. The family settled into the comfortable chaos of celebration. Raymond stood slightly to the side. Still on the edges where he belonged. But present. Included. Part of something larger than his failures. He had walked away from a hospital once. Had abandoned the woman he loved while she bled and begged him to stay. Had set in motion years of suffering that could never be fully undone. But he had also walked into a hospital to save his son's life. Had shown up for every meeting Oliver allowed. Had accepted his limitations without resentment or entitlement. And now he stood in a hospital room holding his granddaughter. Surrounded by people who had once hated him and had slowly learned to accept him. Part of a family he had nearly destroyed but had been allowed to observe from its margins. It was not the ending he would have written. But it was exactly the one he had earned. And standing there watching Eleanor sleep in her father's arms. Watching 4 generations of a family that had survived him and thrived despite him. Raymond finally understood. Some doors once closed can never be reopened. Some choices create permanent consequences. Some mistakes cannot be undone no matter how much we wish they could. But grace exists. Forgiveness can be given even when it is not deserved. Families can expand to include the people who hurt them if those people prove they have changed. Raymond had proved it. Year by year. Meeting by meeting. Small faithfulness repeated until it accumulated into something real. He would never be Oliver's father. Gabriel held that title and always would. But he was something. A grandfather now. A biological footnote that had grown into a supporting character. A cautionary tale that had somehow found its way toward a peaceful ending. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything. The end.